Happy Sunday and welcome back to the Scaries podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rossi, and we are back on another Sunday to hear your scary stories and do our best to help you through them. On this podcast, I've shared a lot of crazy stories from wild nights out, dating gone wrong, and my messy coming out journey. But on today's episode, I wanted to dive a bit deeper on your submissions about work and career. If you know me or you're just meeting me, I started the beginning of my career on a pretty traditional path. I went to college, I got a corporate job, I worked my way up the ladder only to realize halfway up that it was taking me somewhere that I didn't want to go. On the crux of my 30th year, I decided to throw it all out the window and make a risky pivot into social media full time. 8 months later, I am the happiest, most fulfilled, and driven in my career than I've ever been and have found financial freedom along the way. Today, I'm going to go through your career questions, problems, and drama and share with you how I began chasing my passions and dreams, started a side hustle alongside a 9-to-5 full-time corporate job, and ultimately took the leap to full-time entrepreneurship. Buckle up because we're about to get scary. Before we dive into things, I just wanted to remind everyone of the ground rules. Number one is that our submissions are anonymous and will always stay anonymous. Our second one is that this is an inclusive space. We listen and we don't judge. And lastly, I am not a licensed therapist. This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only and should not be used in lieu of actual medical advice. And with that, we can jump into things. So the first submission I have here, like I said, I pulled all of the scary submissions that have to do with career or work or everything in between. And the first one that I wanted to read was I am starting my first full-time real job tomorrow. And the reason I picked this is one, congratulations. I can definitely see how that's scary when you're on the eve of your first ever job. It reminds me of when I first started my job, and it is definitely both an exciting and nerve-wracking time, like equal parts. I'd say it's pretty, not bittersweet, but just it's normal to have these ambivalent feelings where you're excited yet nervous. And I wanted to kind of use this scary to tell you a little bit more about really the start of my career. So if you're just tuning in, you know that I do social media full time. I am a content creator, but I did not start my career this way. I started my career going down a pretty traditional path. So what does that mean? Well, the story really begins with my parents. So I grew up in an immigrant family. My mom was born in Italy. She moved here. She was the youngest of 6, and she moved here when she was 6 years old with her family. Half of her siblings actually stayed in Italy. Half of them moved here because they had already been married and started having kids back in Italy, and they weren't going to uproot their lives. But my grandparents and a few of the siblings wanted to move to America like everyone did, chasing the American dream to really, find a better life, that whole spiel, right? My dad's story is not too different. He was born in the United States, but his parents were from actually a town probably 10 to 15 minutes away from my mom's hometown. Also moved to the Boston area. And from there, they went to, I think, middle school together, but not high school together. My dad went to a different school. Didn't really know each other. They eventually met each other in their early adulthoods and got married, yada, yada. Had my sister and I, and really that's, I'd say, where the story starts. Not just because I was literally born, but because it, I think, gives you a little bit of context to the environment that I was raised in and how that environment really shaped who I became in a career setting. So both of my parents came from families that were at the time more blue collar. So I think my grandmother on my mom's side worked in like a watch factory when she first moved here. It was in some sort of assembly line work. My grandfather passed away not too long after they moved here. I honestly don't know too much about his career, but I imagine it was in some sort of manual style labor, whether that's construction or other kind of labor work. I honestly don't know too much. He passed away when my mom was younger than I am. So on my dad's side, my grandmother had held a few different jobs. She had been I believe, lunch lady at some of the schools in the town, and my grandfather was a stonemason. So he would lay brickwork and really, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't really know what a stonemason is. Otherwise, like they do like cement and rocks at houses, or he builds fireplaces. He built our fireplace in our house that I grew up in as a kid. So that's what he did. And my grandparents had the goal to provide this life for their kids that would be better than theirs. That being said, they were still pretty poor. So my grandparents were not able to pay for college for my mom or my dad. So my dad grew up really having different side jobs his whole life. So I think he was a newspaper boy. He was working in restaurants, really doing anything he could to make a quick dollar. He definitely had this innate entrepreneurship that came likely from his parents, or just kind of this blue collar working mentality. Fast forward, my grandparents decided to move up to New Hampshire on my dad's side, move up to New Hampshire and open up a restaurant. So now my dad was simultaneously working at a restaurant while also trying to get into different kind of careers that he could without having a college education. That landed him in real estate. So when my dad was about my age, he was really doing a lot of like sales real estate, but then using whatever money he could to purchase real estate and work. Like I always tell the story that like he would flip houses, but it wasn't like what you see on the internet now or YouTube videos where there were instructional videos on how do you install drywall. Like he had to figure it out on his own or with like friends. So he was literally doing the work himself to fix up these homes and then ultimately sell them. And then eventually over time and using the money that he had from sales while also helping out my grandparents with the restaurant, he started to be able to just purchase homes, pay people to renovate them, and then flip them. And then from there, built up a real estate development, brokerage business while also having some properties of his own. My mom has a pretty cool entrepreneurial story as well. She ended up going to beauty school and becoming a hairdresser and opening a hair salon with her sister who did the same thing. They both went to beauty school, became hairdressers, and opening up a hair salon in my hometown that is still open to this day. And I have gotten a lot of questions on my hair, and people are always like, why do you have such great hair? And who does your hair? Or where's your barber? Or what products do you use? I literally don't know. My mom has done my hair since I was born. I've had a few other people here and there sub in, like when I was in college or lived other places for a little bit. And I will tell you, there is nothing more traumatizing than going to a new hairdresser. And imagine that hairdresser being your mother, and then now not only are you leaving your hairdresser for a new hairdresser, you're leaving your mother. And I didn't even know what to tell people when they were cutting my hair. They're like, what do you do? I would call my mom on the phone and put her on the phone with a barber or hairdresser and be like, Mom, I need you to explain to them what you do to my hair. Like, I don't know clipper length. I don't know scissors. I've now learned what to say a little bit better. But yeah, my mom was a hairdresser. That's why I have incredible hair. It's probably looking a little flat right now because I haven't messed with it in a while. But yeah, shout out to my mom. So basically, I grew up around two entrepreneurs that ended up pretty successful down that road. That being said, what they wanted for their kids was to have the opportunity to go to college because they didn't have that. They saw their peers and other successful people in their lives go to college and then get these great jobs and build their careers through there. And while my parents were successful in their own small businesses, they, I think, really saw the value in a formal education, advanced degrees, et cetera, and wanted that for their kids. So that being said, it was super important to me at a young age to not just go to college, but really, transparently, like my parents, they helped me in college, get into college. They like put away money and savings early on to help pay for my college. And for that, I'm really grateful and understand the privilege there. But for me, it was so important to get almost the biggest bang for their buck. Like I had this perfect boy syndrome as a kid. I think Part of it was sexuality related, where I wanted to be the one that got good grades in school. I wanted to be well-rounded and do sports and be the vice president of my class and have all the teachers love me and follow all the rules. A lot of that, I think, was because I was so desperate at an early age, like being so closeted to gain people's approval, that I wanted to follow the rules. I've talked a little bit about this in the past, but another piece was I wanted to be successful. Like I wanted to work hard. If I had all of these opportunities that my parents were going to provide me, I wanted to make the most out of it. And so I remember just being in like middle school and thinking about college. Where am I going to go? How do I get into the best colleges? I wanted to go to obviously Harvard. Growing up in the Boston area when I was little, I had exposure to these great universities, but like I got a little more realistic in middle school and early high school. And, I wanted to go to the Georgetowns. I didn't really like know. I just knew basically brand names of colleges because that's all I could really go off of and what I had seen in movies or TV or where friends' parents had gone. So I was kind of on my own there, but I just knew that, hey, if you work really hard, you take the AP classes, you get the good grades, you do the extracurriculars. I knew the formula to at least get into the good school. Sure, I didn't have like some of the recommendations letters or maybe connections that some of my friends had that you need to get into these elite schools, which, yeah, I'll say it, you do. Like there's a reason why everyone who has parents that go to Harvard gets into Harvard. Maybe not everyone. I'm generalizing, but I think when you are applying to school as an applicant at like a disadvantage, you realize the advantages of those around you. And I'm not saying this in any negative way. I think it's a reality of the university system in the United States. Like I still came from a privileged perspective. I was in a wealthy suburb outside of Boston. Granted, I lived in more of the working class part of that wealthy suburb, but I knew the privilege that I had in my school, having college counselors and having connections to schools already. But there were kids that I went to school with who had very strong connections to elite universities, and you kind of learn that a lot of times there are some strings that can get pulled that get you in, and there's nothing more disheartening than when you work harder than someone and you try and apply to a university that ultimately someone that doesn't have that opportunity gets. But that being said, I ended up getting into a great university. I got into the University of Michigan. My story with the University of Michigan is pretty funny though, because I had if you looked at the list of schools that I applied to, you could not categorize them. You had some like small Jesuit ones. You had some that I applied to just because they were in California, like USC. I wanted to go to USC. I wanted to live in Los Angeles. I thought that would be sick. I had some Boston City schools. I had some schools that were more college town in the middle of nowhere. Like I really had the broad spectrum because I just threw a lot of shit at the wall and kind of saw what stuck, and what ended up sticking was the University of Michigan, predominantly because I knew at a young age that, or not a young age, but pretty early on, that I wanted to go into business. I think I knew that I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to go into anything in the arts very transparently, because to me, I knew I wanted to make money. Like I knew that the business umbrella was big enough that there were things that leaned more creative if I wanted to do something creative, or leaned more analytical if I wanted to do something more analytical. But it wasn't as narrow of a path as going and getting, an art history degree or something in medicine where you're going heavy science. It just felt right. I think engineering was another one that I had considered, but ultimately I really wanted to go into business just because it's still, even relative to engineering, felt a little bit less pigeonholed. So I had looked at universities that had really great business programs. I think at the time when I was writing my college essays, my story a lot of the time was that I just told you, that I had grown up in this working class family, had the opportunity to be a first generation college student, and wanted to really use my experience to give back and help build the businesses that my parents had grown, specifically my dad, by going into some sort of finance or real estate finance type occupation. And I got into business school at the University of Michigan. I joined all the business clubs. I was totally like the business kid at school. I kind of made that my niche or community. And I think what I found was I thought that I knew what I wanted, but I didn't fully know. So I think I wanted to do this finance thing. I wanted to go into real estate to help my dad grow the business. But what I really wanted to do was be an entrepreneur. If you look to why I wanted to do real estate to help my dad, it was because it was me basically taking his business and be acting as an owner and helping to grow it. And that's an important difference because the track I was going was a lot more into like a corporate finance type role and not really entrepreneurship. So fast forward to my junior year, I was going through intern recruiting for a summer internship, and I had been meaning to go to some sort of bank finance internship corporate presentation, and I accidentally walked into the wrong room. I was super uncomfortable because I was wearing a suit and everyone else in the room was wearing more like business casual. It had ended up being a PepsiCo brand management corporate presentation. And I had walked in the room, like had sat down and it was too late. Like I didn't want to be the one that got up and left, not only because I didn't want everyone to know that I had made the mistake, but also it just felt rude. And I already was sticking out like a sore thumb in my full suit. And so I stayed and I was like, well, I've gone to plenty of other finance corporate presentations. It's not going to hurt if I miss one. So I'm listening, I'm watching, and I'm seeing them talk about what brand management is and how cool of projects they get to work on as Pepsi, which is like a multinational global organization. And when I say Pepsi, like I mean PepsiCo. So PepsiCo owns a ton of different beverages. So you have like Mountain Dew, Pepsi, Bubbly, Rockstar Energy, Sierra Mist, which is now, what is it? Mist, what is it? Starry, yeah, Starry, Aquafina. And then they also own all Frito-Lay. So I always joke, like it was Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, Fritos, anything that ends in Eatos, and really any sort of snack that all is under the PepsiCo umbrella, Gatorade, Quaker Oats, Tropicana, like huge organization of global brands. So they have money and they were, sponsoring Super Bowls. They were sponsoring the Grammys, really any cultural event that happened in the United States or even the world. Pepsi had their brands incorporated in, and it was part of their really culture driven marketing plan. And that's why you see Britney Spears or whatever popular pop star at the time doing a Pepsi commercial, is because they wanted to be the brand of really the next generation of pop culture, etc. So I'm watching this presentation and I'm also learning about like what brand management is. And I won't lie, I like brushed off marketing at an early age as, that was for transparently like the girls and the gays. Like it was like the like creative, fun, like marketing, logos, art. Like I thought it was a lot more superficial than it was. Fast forward, I guess I found my place because here I am having come out and going into marketing. But like what I also learned was like marketing is truly bringing something to market. It is the basically backbone of a business in that you are touching everything from product development. So what is a product that is needed in the market by a group of consumers? What does that product promise to solve? Like what problem does it solve? How do you design a product from packaging to messaging to colors to like everything to communicate that problem that it's solving to you? How do you tell people about it? How do you strategically partner with sales teams to get it into stores? Like how do you make a PR and social media campaign to tell people about it? It was so much more entrepreneurial than I thought it was. Like it wasn't just we're going to make social media posts and make cool commercials. It was how do you really create a business out of nothing and sustain that business? And it was this hub of the wheel where you are working across finance to finance these, whether it's, we want to go with the nicer can or the cheaper can. Can we afford this? What cost does it cost to make, and what do we have to sell it at, and is that too high of a cost to a consumer? To working with supply chain, how are we going to source these materials? What is the volume going to be? How are we going to ship it across the United States? Working with legal, what can we legally call it? What can we claim? What can we can't claim? Like, can we say it gives you wings? I don't know. Probably not. Or is like saying that a drink's going to give you wings enough of it's so far out that no one would ever possibly think that they were going to drink it and get wings, those kind of things. And then, working with social media teams and really that intersection of like almost like entertainment, culture, and business was basically what the job was. So here I am sitting in this room that I'm at the corporate presentation, and I'm like talking to these people afterwards. I just found it so much more natural to talk to them. I was interested in the work they had. I had questions that just were good questions because I was genuinely interested in it. And I just felt it so much easier. It was like, I kind of going back to like the perfect boy syndrome. It was like the first time that I kind of like broke that mold. Like when I was in a finance meeting or a finance presentation and talking to these people, it felt so tight. And I was so worried about the questions I was asking. And it felt like I was checking off all of these boxes just because this was what was kind of expected of me. But when I was in this PepsiCo corporate presentation, it just felt easy. It felt right. And I was interested in it all. And going back to what I said was I realized like I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and this was the path to doing that while using the resources of a large corporation. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing. I applied, I got the internship. Also, it was like the internship that I got the quickest because I just genuinely was like obsessed with it. Like I wanted to make a resume that was custom for it. I wanted to talk to every single person on a phone call before because I wanted to learn their experience. I prepared for the interview because I just cared about it in every way. And I think when you know what you want to do and care about something, you make it happen. So it wasn't like, oh, I threw in my application, I got it. Like, no, I worked my fucking ass off to get it because I knew I wanted it so much, but it didn't feel like work because it just felt like what I needed to do. And it came a little bit easier than some of the other opportunities I had. So fast forward, I do the internship. I have an incredible summer. I was on the Mountain Dew culture and like music team. So basically it was where Mountain Dew intersected with anything culture forward. So it was within, there's like basically 3 pillars to brand management. You have communications, you have commercialization, and then you have innovation. Innovation is anything having to do with the actual product. So a new flavor, a new style, an offering with extra caffeine or zero sugar, or we're going to change the packaging to a can from a bottle, or we're going to make it green or blue or whatever. Like that is innovation. That's like product. Then you have commercialization, and that's more of your in-store retail activation. You're working closely with sales. What are your big markets? Obviously, there are parts of the country where a product might resonate more than others. If you're in New York City, getting a big 24-pack of Mountain Dew probably is less feasible than if you live in a suburb of Utah where you have access to a car and you're going to a grocery store to do your shopping, versus when you're in New York City, I can't carry 24 bottles of Mountain Dew onto the subway into my house that is probably not a house, it's an apartment. It's a tiny apartment where I don't have space to store a 24-pack. Like that's like commercialization and how do you position each of the different products in the portfolio to different geographies, but then also different stores, formats, everything. So basically like that's like the rubber meets the road. How do you sell the thing? And then the last piece is communications. And that's like the sexy fun stuff that when I was talking about earlier, where it was like, that's your commercials, that's your social media, that's your sponsoring celebrities, doing your Super Bowl. It's like, how do you build the brand in a cool way? Like, how do you make the brand something that people want to hold in their hand? And that was what this first internship was under. When I went full time, I was in a rotational program where I had roles in each of them for about like 9 months to a year. So the Pepsi is known in a lot of these CPG companies are known for having these rotational programs that basically become like a grad school for brand management. And that's what I was in. So, I mean, honestly, Michigan was the worst school of my internship group. Like, you had kids from Harvard, Yale, Northwestern, everything. Like, Michigan was, and this is so obnoxious and entitled to say, but it was the reality. Like, they had really selective schools that they recruited from. And like all of these people, like if you were a director of a PepsiCo brand, you could go be a CMO of a startup brand pretty easily. Like it was really the best of the biz. So I learned a lot. I acted as an entrepreneur. Like I think, like I said, like I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but when you're at a corporation, like there is so many resources and experiences that you can build for a little bit. And that's what I did. Like I say, like the first 5 years of my career were just all about like absorbing. It's like, sure, I couldn't afford to live in New York. I was commuting 4 hours a day. I was working like longish hours. I was hustling, but I was learning. I was absorbing everything. And I knew like down the road, okay, this will come in handy when I start my own business, when I start my own brand, whatever. So, not to mention, I was doing cool shit. Like I was going to like Migos concerts on the weekdays, going to like other pop-up Soho events, going to NBA games, and like these were all work things because we were activating around it. Like it was a cool job. But that being said, like the cooler the job, the less the salary is, because they know that that you're going to do cool things, and that in a way is compensation. So that was kind of the beginning of my career in Pepsi. Did the rotations, got a lot of like really cool experiences, met a lot of great people, really intelligent people that to this day I'm still connected with. But this thing called like COVID happened, and it was conveniently around the same time that I had been now at Pepsi for a while, and I was this is where it intersects with a lot of my coming out journey story and like my New York, why I hated it journey, where I was like commuting 2 hours a day. I didn't have enough money to support myself for the lifestyle that I was living. I was just like exhausted and really run down and just not the best version of myself. And so COVID happened. I had gotten a new job in Boston that allowed me to jump basically 2 levels. So where I was like an analyst level at Pepsi, that translated to an associate manager in Boston because it was a smaller company, smaller talent pool for what I did in Boston. So it was a better fit. I had a bunch of different roles at that company. This was the beer company. Again, just continued to refine my skills until it got to a point where I think if you get to a point in your career where you feel like you're no longer learning, or like, I hate to say it, but like the most expensive house on the block, like you never want to be the nicest house on the block because you're only driving up every other home in the neighborhood's value while those bring you down. So I felt like I had gotten to a point where I was really comfortable in my career. I was really good at the things I was doing. I had gotten a bunch of promotions, but I was in a room where people would look to me for the answer. And I was never feeling super challenged. And that got to a point where I was like, I'm not the one learning anymore. Like, I'm that most expensive house on the block. I'm like, my career is stunted. And I think that, and I was also like, I was having conversations with my bosses and trying to get like more promotions and in roles that I was performing at a higher level than some people, but other people were getting promotions over me. And I felt really weird, like, oh, you have to have been in this role for 2 years. It's like, but I'm doing the role better than someone else. So why should I have to just have this arbitrary timeline that you're telling me I have to be in? And I just didn't buy that. And I think if you're in a similar position, like corporations want you to stay in your role as long as possible. They want the best work at the cheapest cost. They're a business. I'm not saying that your bosses are evil, but businesses are incentivized to reduce costs while maximizing output. And unfortunately, people are the sector of that get hit the hardest. And if you're not advocating for yourself and honestly knowing your worth, but then also I would threaten, like, I'd be like, you know what, then I'm going to pursue other opportunities, or I would threaten to not quit, and like, I'm going to quit in a whiny, bratty way, but it would just be like, all right, well, I have other opportunities that I'm considering. And if this is the timeline for the promotion, I just want to be transparent with you that you may want to prep for a backfill, because I'm pursuing opportunities at other places that are going to give me this experience and position that I want. And that would kind of be the kick in the ass, because now they're like, oh, that value of work is at risk, so now we have to pay a little bit more for it. So I think like really being confident and knowing your worth is really important in your career. And I'm not saying be like a spoiled brat, though. Like, sometimes I did go about it as a little bit of a spoiled brat, but I knew my worth. Like, there was no reason why someone else should be getting a promotion just because they had been at the company longer than me. So I think the reason I bring these up is not to gloat about myself and not to tell you how awesome I was at my jobs. It's to tell you that all of this, and then I'll just say the next scary now. It says, I kind of hate my job. Like, out of all this, like, I was really good at what I was doing. I had gone to business school. I had like built connections. I had learned a lot, and I found that I hated my job. And I had the best possible job that you could ask for. At one point, it was the job that I always wanted, and it was the coolest corporate job. Like, I was working at a beer company in my 20s, getting to go out and drink beers and not be work, and go out and go to cool events and meet really cool people. But I still didn't feel fulfilled. And this brought me back to that beginning of this whole story of I was underserving that entrepreneurial hunger that I had, that I was born with, that my parents were born with. And I kind of had lost myself along the early part of my career in that commitment to being an entrepreneur. Sure, when I first started the journey, I saw the value in brand management and the learning opportunities and the transferable skills into entrepreneurship that it could provide me down the road. But now I was 7 years into my career, turning 30, and still not having any path to entrepreneurship. And so I've talked about this kind of journey a little bit in the past of how I started my side hustle. It came out of signing a lease that was a little bit too expensive than what I could pay for, and like kind of having the need to earn additional income outside of your kind of day to day, which sucks. Like, it sucks that we live in a country or in a world where you literally need to work multiple jobs to sustain a pretty baseline standard of living. Like, keep in mind, I was living in a studio apartment. Like, it wasn't a one bedroom. It wasn't anything. This was it was the luxury that I could live alone with my dog, and I still couldn't have a bedroom, and I'm working 2 jobs. Like, and I understand that I still had privileged jobs. Like, these were white collar jobs. I wasn't doing manual labor. I wasn't working in the hot sun. I wasn't doing these other jobs. Like, I was getting to work a desk job, and it was fun and it was cool, but I still hated my job. I think that this is a lot more normal than you think, because I think, one, we have a lot more exposure to the world, and like when you say day in the life video and it's day in the life of a traveling nurse or whatever, like, you have this comparison that you're getting so much more exposure than what previous generations had to what other occupations are and do, in the lifestyles and the earnings that come with them. So it's so easy to kind of hate what you do. But I think this is true of everything. I've said this a million times. I'm not going to claim this as some unique advice, but comparison is the thief of joy. When you're constantly getting exposed to kind of other people in their lives and you're comparing yourself to it, it's natural to start to kind of hate your life, honestly, because you're only seeing that highlight reel and the perks of it. But for me, why I hated my job was because I wasn't getting to be the entrepreneur. Like, my skill set was aligning with entrepreneur. I liked doing things on my own because I liked wearing multiple hats. I liked getting exposure to different things. I loved being a Swiss Army knife. I was kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. Like, I liked that. Like, I have ADHD, so my brain gets bored quick. So I liked doing different things, but then getting to do them all, and then having one vision that I was having, that I was executing in every way. And so I just like knew I needed to be this entrepreneur, but I was still so scared to do it. And so, sure, you hear these stories of people that, I quit my job to start this whatever company, and now I'm chasing my dreams. Great. Like, I couldn't do that. How the hell do you, I got a rent to pay and a dog to feed. How am I just going to quit my job and then like start building a business? Like, that's not how it works. So For some it does, and some people have a safety net, and some people live where cost of living is low enough that you can do that. Or alternatively, some people, it's not their choice. They get fired and they have to do something. They have to find a way to make a living, and that's why they go into entrepreneurship. But that's quite a fire lit under your ass. But for me, I was like, how do I take the risk as risk-free as possible? And that's when I read, honestly, a few books. I had decided, I think this was, it's still in my late 20s. I was like, okay, I have to build the path to entrepreneurship. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to do it alongside working a 9-to-5 job. And if you're someone that wants to start a side hustle along your 9-to-5 or whatever kind of job you have alongside what you're currently doing full time, this is how you're going to do it. You have to show up consistently a little bit every day. I don't know what that looks like. I think some people, they see consistency and they're like, I have to do something every single day. Consistency can be something that you commit to doing once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year, as long as it stays the same over time, right? So one book that I read first was Atomic Habits. Again, I'm not going to come here and tell you the most unique books that you've never heard of that are going to change your life. Like, these are the big books that a lot of people have read that are bestsellers, and they're bestsellers for a reason. And Atomic Habits is one of them. And it's all about just changing your behaviors slowly each day, doing more of the positive things that are going to help you and less of the negative things. So it's like, instead of eating 5 chips a day, maybe you eat 3 chips a day and 2 apples, and over time you'll see a change. That was a really weird example, but for me, that good habit in terms of career looked like posting 1 TikTok every single day. And it was something that was feasible alongside my full-time job. It was something that I could come home to do, edit, record, whatever. It could be really high quality one day. It could be maybe lower quality, as long as I was committing to posting 1 TikTok every single day. Slowly over time, I was able to build an audience. Then I was able to monetize that. And then I was able to do it to an extent where I do it full time. That is a highly simplified version of the process. I think alongside that, there was a lot of learning and a lot more hours into building more skills like editing and pacing and kind of videography, photography, angles, lighting, content, scripting, all of these other things. And then also the analytics behind it. What are the analytics that matter most? Retention rate, view through rate, likes, shares, all of that stuff. Building a niche, finding a niche, whatever, which I think niches are overrated, but there's all these levers and strategies that you can pull in social media, and there was a lot of learning behind that. So I am simplifying it down. But what I'm saying is, if you have any sort of dream to start a side hustle, I would say, what is one thing you can do every single day to get closer to that? And that one thing could be reading a book about starting a side hustle. That was another book I read. It was called Side Hustle, and it's literally all about building a side hustle alongside a 9-to-5 job. And the safest, most secure way to do that is a little bit over time. And why is that? Because I didn't have now the pressure of, I quit my job, now my whole livelihood is dependent on this side hustle succeeding and succeeding fast. I still had my bills covered because I was working a 9-to-5 job. And that took the pressure off the social media. I didn't need every single video to blow up and go viral. And I didn't need to grow at a certain rate. And I didn't need to monetize and earn a certain amount each month because I had my bills covered. Sure, once that started happening, I had this extra money and I reinvested it into kind of what I was doing, learning, or just putting it away, building up a safety net so that when I could make the jump into full time, I had kind of this egg that I had built up to then do it and focus on it full time. But I think the worst thing you can do is put pressure on the side hustle to perform in a certain amount of time, because that's the recipe for disaster. If you need a side hustle to succeed, to pay your rent, it's not going to succeed. You're just giving it too much pressure, and you're going to be desperate, and you're going to make decisions that you wouldn't. You need the luxury and freedom to do trial and error and think about what's working and what's not, and not have this pressure. That being said, this is a big time commitment. I've talked about this in the past. There was a long period of my life where I was working long hours. I had to make compromises. I had to say no to social things. I didn't see my friends and family. I would stay in on the weekends and not go out. Those were the compromises that I had to make to build this side hustle. But that was a limited period of time. It's like boot camp. Today am able to do this full time, because I put in those hours early. It's the same thing as if you look at investment principles. Like your best friends with investment is just putting a little bit extra each day in the front half, because over time it'll compound so that you don't need it to work as hard later on. Like it's the same concept. Like do the work up front. And so again, eventually I was able to go full time. I'm super grateful for what I've done. Like I think I get to choose the projects that I work on now. I don't have to sit in a room anymore of people that are double my age that don't know how to open PDFs and tell them why my idea is a good idea and have to spend 2 days convincing them why my idea is a good idea. I can have an idea and put it out there and learn within 10 minutes if that's a good idea or a bad idea. And if it flops, it flops. If it does, great. That's awesome. So like I don't have to convince anyone. I get to work on the things I want, and that's why I feel fulfilled. I think the other big thing, and if you're looking at trying to figure out what is that side hustle and what is the thing I want to do, I think there are 4 questions you need to ask yourself. What are you good at? What are your skills? Are you creative? Do you have like a creative eye? Are you a painter? Are you a singer? Are you very analytical? Like what are the things you're good at? I don't know what you're good at. I don't know you. I'm talking to a camera. But you think about what are the things you're good at, and then what are the things that you enjoy doing? Is it something that you can do every single day? Because if it's not enjoyable, you're not going to do it every day. To some people, they can't go to the gym because they fucking hate it. I love going to the gym. Sure, it didn't happen overnight, but it is one of the highlights of my day. It's meditative. It's something that I can do to better myself. It's communities that I've built and friendships that I've built at the gym. Like I love going to the gym, so that's why I'm able to go every single day, right? So what's something you like doing? What's something you're good at? The third one, and the big one, how does it make you money? Can it make you money? Can going to the gym make me money? Sure, if I start an OnlyFans, right? I get a 6-pack, I get a hot body, I can, this is not the example I'm going, but I'm just saying like the thing that you have to do like has to eventually make you money. Sure, when I was posting social media videos at the beginning, I wasn't making any money, but I was enjoying it. I was getting better at it. And I knew that down the road I could. I knew how I would monetize. I knew that I would start to incorporate brands in and sell branded content to brands. And that's how I was going to make money. The last thing I'll tell you, up until this year, I did not have. And sure, I maybe loosely had it. But if you're watching a lot of my content, you're following along to my journey and the 29 project and a lot of the purpose of this podcast, the last thing is how can you help other people? And sure, some of my videos that did well were in theory helping people. If I was showing you my morning routine or my workout routine, or I was doing something funny that made you laugh, those are all values to people that can in theory help people. But those are very superficial values that I was providing. And I think one thing that why it was so important to me to come out and be public about it was this idea of representation, in that I didn't have people that looked like me growing up in media, in TV shows, in movies. Like as a bisexual man, I didn't see it anywhere. And that kept me in the closet and depressed and anxious for so long. And I made a commitment to no longer do that and to be who I am fully. Whoever has a problem with that, that's their problem. But I knew that it could help so many people just by seeing someone that is like them. And I've gotten that from this podcast. I'll tell you, one of the main reasons I continue this podcast is because of the outpouring of support from the queer community that now feel represented. And that was kind of when everything clicked. So sure, I was doing something that I loved, that I was good at, that was making me money. But the last thing, it just, I knew what it had to be, but I had to conquer some really big fears to do it. And now I did. And I'll tell you, like, I've never been more aligned in my life, career, purpose, passion than I am right now. And there's an energetic shift in it. Like everything I'm doing, I'm showing up better in, I'm more passionate about, I am focused on, and it's because those 4 things are true. And so if you're starting out your journey with side hustle or changing your career, and I don't care what age you are, like, sure, I was 29. To me, that felt late. To some, that's super early. I always think of like Samuel L. Jackson had his first big movie when he was like 42 years old. And now you're thinking like Samuel L. Jackson's this huge actor. But people can change their careers at any point in their life. So if you're like, oh, I'm too old, or it's too late, or I have like a family, like, sure, it is easier to do things when you're younger and you're just supporting yourself. Like if I had a family, this whole journey would have been a lot harder, but it's never too late to pivot. You just got to start doing one thing each day that's going to get you closer to that thing you want to be. And I think in terms of knowing what you want to be, think of those 4 things. What are you good at? What do you like doing? What can make you money? And what can help other people? And you'll see over time, you can make it successful. Because one of the other things that I heard in my journey was that overnight success takes years. And you're just seeing the result oftentimes. I don't care, any actor, singer, dancer, whoever you look up to, see social media influencer, their success may have seemed overnight because they had that one thing that like really turned them over and accelerated their growth. But what you're not seeing is the years of training, of vocal classes, of acting classes, of rejections, of failed videos that flop. Like you're not seeing any of those things while they're honing their craft, right? You're not seeing any of that upfront work. You're just seeing the result. And that's why it is so, so, so important to just show up consistently over time. And then eventually you will see little kind of signs and jumps that you're making progress and you're successful. And then eventually, hopefully you do have that overnight success that you worked so hard for. So yeah, I'd say to give you tangible advice, like books are great. Again, like if I had to recommend 2, Atomic Habits, Side Hustle, I'll throw in Restart Roadmap. That's by Jason Tartick. He was a Bachelor guy. Shout out to him. I read his book. I thought it was really interesting, especially for my specific journey, like having gone from a corporate job into kind of this world of reality TV, media, entertainment, and just that shift that you can kind of happen, but then also the transferable skills with it. Like I'll tell you, sure, I don't work in a corporate job anymore. I have taken everything that I learned in a corporate job and I've applied it to what I'm doing right now, whether it's from designing logos or brand to building what is a product, right? Like this podcast, I'll pull the sheet back right here. Like this podcast is a product. What is it offering? Like who's it helping? Who's it speaking to? Like what's the tone of it? What's the value that it's providing? Like all of those things were things I learned as a marketer. I learned how to throw events. I learned how to network. You'd be surprised how many people just don't know how to talk to someone like that. That's like a really difficult thing to do. And just having networking skills and ability to kind of communicate your value effectively. Like these were all skills I learned in a professional corporate setting that I've now been able to transfer into an entrepreneurial, like less structured corporate setting, right? Even though I'm on here talking about threesomes and crazy sex stories and dating disasters and drunk nights out, my corporate learning in kind of tactics are buried in here, and I'll tell you the secrets of that. Like that's what I'm doing here. So no matter what you've spent time doing in building in your career, and I've said this on this podcast before, where I was like, how am I going to quit my job after going to a top business school to make wiener jokes on the internet? Like you're not giving yourself enough credit for the transferable skills that you've built and will be able to use in anything that you transfer into. All right. So then the last scare I have here is honestly, I'll be transparent. I feel like I've talked all about, my career and being good at your job and then like building a side hustle and how do you get the career of your dreams. But I also would be doing a disservice if I didn't talk about like kind of the other end of the spectrum of like, what if you really like your job and you lost your job out of your control? So this submission says, next week's my last week being employed. I got laid off. My last day is next Friday. And I think, there are people like you do not have to care that much about your career. I'm a Capricorn. Like I am driven. I am ambitious. Like I care a lot about my career, whether that's a self-esteem thing, a status thing, sure, say whatever you want. There are some people that really just work to live and their career isn't the most important thing for them. Or they are like they live to work and they've lost their job. Like you don't have to really love what you're doing. Like you can just show up, have a job that pays the bills and prioritize other facets of your life, like your family, relationship, love, passions outside. that is totally fine. And if you like lose your job and you're just like, how the hell do I just get another one? Like, I think, and I'm saying this because I think I'm going to give you the same advice for if like you just need a job to pay the bills, or if you're feeling a little bit lifeless in your job. Like, what are those passions of yours, and how do you make those a job? Like, if you love to eat, there is now a platform where you can eat on camera and share mukbangs and do food reviews and grow an audience and eventually monetize that, and that can become your job, right? Like, there are so many opportunities in this world to make money. You can make money doing someone's grocery shopping. You can make money delivering food. If you're like, I hate talking to people, I don't want to talk to anyone. Like, you don't have to be an Uber driver. You can just do DoorDash. Like, you can walk. If you love dogs, you can dog sit and walk dogs and get paid to do it. There is a way to get paid for anything that you like doing. Sure, there are things that pay you more, and there are things that socially seem more successful. If you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a business executive, right? Those things don't fucking matter if you don't give a shit about them. Like, if you don't care about your status, right? Like, that's the most valuable thing you can have, because you will live a life doing shit that you enjoy and that you like doing. And if you can get that to pay the bills, then you've hit the lottery. Like, I'd say like a lot of my career historically was about like having this career that I would be proud of and can tell people about. And when you quit social media, or if you quit your full-time job and start saying you're an influencer, I was like, I'm embarrassed to say that. When you stop giving a shit, you can just lean into doing the shit that you love and find a way to monetize it. So I would say, if you do lose your job, you got laid off, you're worried about what's next, take it as an opportunity to really figure out what you want and to take a step back. Like, rejection is redirection, whether it's a breakup, whether it's being laid off. It is an awesome opportunity for you to just look inward and figure out what are the things you really fucking love doing. If you had all the time in the world, how would you spend it? And then from there, think about, okay, well, how could I monetize it? And then do that practice that I was saying before. Like, what are the things you love doing? What are the things you're good at? How do you make money? And then how can you help other people? And I think that should be your next step. I think, yes, being laid off, it's really scary, especially if you have a mortgage, a family, you have bills to pay, right? It can really hurt your self-esteem. It can be really demotivating. But if you are super passionate about fitness and you got laid off from your whatever corporate job, why not start taking some more fitness classes, maybe even start teaching them, or offering to, a lot of yoga studios, if you like clean up the sweat after, like they'll let you like work out there for free, but then you can also start to take lessons and like get your hours in to learn to be like a yoga instructor. Like, I would say, like, start to lean into those things. Like, what are your passions? Like, ideally, if you get laid off, you get severance too, right? So you'll have some coverage. If not, we live in the United States. We're paying taxes out our ass, so you'll get some Social Security support, some unemployment support, whatever it is. And if you need to, like, there's no shame in filing for unemployment. If you are unemployed, like, you might as well. You paid all the taxes on it before. And I think just use the time as you can to really figure out what you want to do with it, and then how you can start to monetize it. And if you have to do a job that you don't love, like being a waitress or working as a barista or walking dogs, do that to pay your bills, and then use the other time to really start to figure out what you want to do next and how you can start to monetize that, or how you can learn a new skill, read a book, take a class, network, etc. So I would say, it was funny, like, this is so privileged and entitled to say, but like, there was so long where I wished I got laid off, because I was so scared to quit my job that I just needed that kick in the ass out the door to kind of figure out what was next. So I think if you can change your mindset and mentality about it, it could be one of the most life-changing and powerful moments in your entire life. So, and then, like, last thing I did just want to say before we wrap is that, like, if you're feeling lost in your career and what you want to do in your life and other facets, just like know that, I'm going to get a little cushy on you. Like, you can only find yourself if you get lost first. So if you're in your career and you're realizing you're down a path that you don't want to be in anymore, you only learn that by doing it. So there's beauty in recognizing that you're lost or along a path that you want to change directions, because it allows you to do just that. It allows you to make the changes and put the things in place that you need to kind of course correct. And it's never too late to do that, no matter what your age is, your gender, sexuality. Like, it doesn't matter what you can do. You can take control of your life and your career. And this is just like one way to do it. And I'd really say lean inward, figure out what are your passions, what are the things that you love doing that feel really effortless when you're doing them. And then lastly, like, how can you use those things to make an impact on other people? And I think that's where you'll be able to really change your life. Do something with your time that you both love doing, that makes you money and is making an impact, and you'll be surprised by how far you go by it. So with that, I will close out for the week. I don't have a scary of the week because this was a more serious episode, but if you have any more work, career scaries that you want to submit, you can send them over to the scariespod@gmail.com. You can submit them on my Instagram story every Sunday, or you can submit them on the link tree in the Scaries bio platform. Make sure to follow at the Scaries Pod across platforms, and wherever you listen to podcasts, we're there. Give us a follow, hit subscribe. It really helps us out. If you enjoyed the podcast or know of someone that could benefit from it, send it on over to them. And lastly, I hope you all have a great week and go make some more scaries. We'll see you next time.